Okay, good afternoon. We're going to call this meeting to order. Today is Monday, September 29th. It is
Just nine.
5:01.
Today's just the 9th,
What did I say?
29th.
Oh, I'm sorry. Monday, September 9th. I saw the 20 and 2 and the 20. 2024. It is 5.
The clerk reached out to Tommy Doyle, the election supervisor, and he responded that if this council would like for the election to move to Bay Oaks Recreation Center, that's okay. We just need consensus, so Amy can let them know that we've reached a consensus that it moved down there on the 5th of May. That way we don't have to
November.
relocate.
It's in November.
I said 29th.
Those days.
We're all good.
And I'm the one that needed the nap today.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Of November. So we
Okay.
need
Go ahead.
consensus.
Yes.
Does that mean that the Monday meeting stays the same or we're changing it?
That would correct. We would stay as our regular schedule.
Okay.
On Monday the 4th.
Monday the
Here
4th and then,
instead of
And
at
it'll be
Bay
here
Oaks.
instead of
Here.
down there.
and still have a
M&P
M&P on the 7th.
That is
here.
correct. Stick with our regular schedule.
Thank you.
I'm good with that.
You good with it?
Yep.
I'm good with it.
I'm good.
You have
Yes.
consensus?
Perfect.
All right.
I'll
Amy, you
let
have
them
your-
know.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
So the way these public hearings go, just for the new council members who haven't been through it yet, it's kind of weird. You have to do the millage rate before, you have to approve the millage rate before you can approve the budget. But the way we have to do it is we'll have to open item A, the proposed millage rate, table it. Then we're gonna have to open the tentative budget, talk about the tentative budget, table it. And then do you want us, Nancy, to go talk about the fees and go back? So basically, we're gonna open and table everything and then go back to the beginning, reopen it, vote on it, move on to the next one, vote on it. Make sense?
It's so clean.
And,
Crystal clear.
and Mayor, also
There's one.
before the actual vote is taken on any of the resolutions, we just need to ask for public comment, even if there's
Yes,
nobody
For each
present.
one, yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you want to open it, public comment, then take the vote to, or do you want to do
I
public
think,
comment when we actually do the vote?
Before you do the vote.
Got it. Okay. So we will open the first public hearing is resolution 24-174, fiscal year 25 proposed millage rate. It is a resolution of the town council of the town of Fort Myers Beach adopting the proposed ad valorem millage rate for the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida for fiscal year 2024-2025, commencing October 1st, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025, for the purpose of providing sufficient funds for the general fund, setting the second and final public hearing for Monday, September 23rd, 2024 at 5:01 PM to adopt the final operating ad valorem millage rate for fiscal year 2024-2025 and providing an effective date. I'll now open the public hearing. Is there a motion to table the millage?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Counselor Woodson, seconded by Counselor Safford. Any further discussion? And I assume you want a roll call vote?
Public comment.
Counselor Woodson,
Aye.
Counselor Safford,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt,
Aye.
Counselor King,
Aye.
Mayor Allers, aye. We will table that. Open item B, resolution 24-175, fiscal year 2025 tentative budget. It is a resolution of the town council of the town of Fort Myers Beach adopting the tentative budget for fiscal year 2024-2025, commencing October 1st, 2024, and ending on September 30th, 2025, setting the second and final budget adoption public hearing for Monday, September 23rd, 2024 at 5:01 PM and providing for an effective date. We'll now open the public hearing. Do you want to table that and go to the next one? Got it. Okay. Is there a motion to table resolution 24-175?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Counselor King, seconded by Counselor Safford. Any further discussion? Counselor King,
Aye.
Counselor Safford,
Aye.
Counselor Woodson,
Aye.
and Vice Mayor Earl.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. That is tabled. Item C, resolution 24-176, fiscal year 25 tentative fee schedule. A resolution of the town council of the town of Fort Myers Beach adopting the tentative fee schedule for fiscal year 2024, 2025, commencing October 1st, 2024, and ending on September 30th, 2025, and providing for an effective date. We will now open the public hearing. Joe? Good afternoon.
Thank you. Joe Onzik, Finance Director. I have a presentation on the fees. Oh, here we go. Okay. Actually, Jacob, this is the tentative budget. I need the fee schedule one. There we go. Okay. So this is a relatively brief. There are only a few fee changes that are incorporated into the fee schedule. And if you're following along on the actual fee schedule, any changes are noted in the right-hand column in red, so that should make it easier for you to find where they are. So basically, we start out with permits for business extension, sidewalk, cafe, right-of-way permits. They're increasing 3% automatically per resolution 1846. It's going from 1288 per square foot to 1327 per square foot. Personal watercraft vendor license, PWVL, will increase 3% from 375 to 386.25. Parasailing vendor license, PVL, will increase 3% from 375 to 386.25. Beach furniture for the first year will increase 3% from $120 to $123.60. And beach furniture vendor license renewal will increase 3% from $120 to $123.60. So those are really the basic automatic increases that we have. In addition to those, if you have any questions on those, we could pause. Otherwise, we have fee increases for Mound House that'll be presented by Adam and Jeff.
Any questions for Joe at this time?
Not about your in the red, but I do have other questions. Do you want me to save those?
Let's do the Mound House, and then after
Okay.
that, we'll go back to, because I'm guessing there's probably some other people that have some things they want to talk about specifically.
Yep.
Jeff, is that you? No?
Let Adam take the reins on this.
Okay.
Oh, hello. Adam Knight, Museum Manager. And services offered at Mound House, event rentals, museum admissions, programs, special events, our membership, museum store. But overall, the big major changes is refocusing the overall structure of revenue for Mound House to focus on group programs, event rentals, and really targeting towards our membership and doing that in a way that encourages people to arrive by groups, events, as well as purchase memberships. So they'll be returning visitors, returning users to the Mound House property for programs. So the biggest changes being actually changing from the museum admission from $15 to $10 for adults, and then changing the kayak tour cost from $50 for an adult to $45 for an adult. We've had these fee schedules for the last 2 fiscal years, that they took effect in September 22. And it seems that increased price point from $5 from 10 to 15 in fiscal year fiscal year 23. For both the kayak tours and the museum admission, that increase of $5 just doesn't seem to make sense with the price point, given the attendance for the museum as well as the attendance for our kayak tours. So we're suggesting that a price point that we had previously to revert back to that to better increase more visitation and thus more revenue for the museum. But I can answer any more detailed questions you may have.
All right. John, any questions for Adam?
No questions, just to compliment that my wife and the vice mayor's wife took the kayak tour and just loved it and loved the staff's presentation. And thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Good afternoon or good evening. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to advise or coach the council here because we have this joint meeting on the 18th. And I don't think we'll have an opportunity to talk to you beforehand. And while the accreditors are not here, it might be easier to give some advice and coaching as to what you're looking for from the council during that joint meeting so we can make sure we satisfy what the accreditation folks are looking for. So if you just want to take a quick second to give some advice as to how you see that unfolding in a way that's most favorable to the Mound House.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks so much for agreeing to that joint meeting. It will be very important for the museum assessment program that the American Alliance of Museums is hosting. That joint meeting, basically the focus of the overall museum assessment program is in operations to better increase the efficiencies and interactions and helping define those roles and responsibilities between the various stakeholders that make the Mound House what it is today. The Mound House has a very interesting and complex history and how it came to be, not only in its preservation, but also in its operations. We have, of course, the advisor boards, council, staff, as well as a nonprofit, the Friends of Mound House, which assists in funding and supporting and fundraising and advocating for the Mound House. So there's a lot of moving parts that we're hoping to help make sure that everyone's on the same common page and make sure that we all have the same common vision for the museum and Mound House and the overall department as a whole. So again, the main goal of that joint meeting is to have council, CELCAP, and the key staff in the same room to discuss the Mound House and the Mound House future and really lay a groundwork or a roadmap towards the Mound House in developing a strategic plan that makes sense for the museum as this unique entity within the town governance, but also one that integrates within the town's larger strategic plan.
Would
I
the
hope- does that
Friends
answer your question?
Be
I'm
a part
sorry.
of that as well or not?
No, not a part of the governance meeting.
Okay,
No, sir, but they will be a part of later sessions and meetings during the 2-day visit.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Adam.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Council Woodson?
No, I'm just reading all the fine print here.
We'll come back. Councilor Safford?
I
say
do
I
not have any
don't, but-
questions at this time.
I do not either.
No, I'm good.
You're good? All right, thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Thanks, Evan.
Mayor, if I may, your agenda was amended and the resolution did have an additional clause in it. I don't recall if that was read, but it's adopting a fee refund policy. And I think that's attachment B, and Joe can speak to that.
Yes, let's see if I. So there is, at the request of our town attorney, we had put together a fee refund policy. This was a compilation of the various refund policies that various departments have had put into practice, whether unofficially or I should say formally or informally. We don't necessarily have a town-wide policy in place that incorporates all these things. So this is an effort to achieve that. In compiling everything, it seemed that the common denominator to whether refunds are issued or not was whether or not the service had already been rendered by the town. So that's just one general policy. And I tried to draft the wording that would apply across the board, but we did end up having to address various situations. So if you looked at the policy itself, it's attachment B. It starts out being fairly general, but then it does address like specific types of fees, whether it be, let's see, just for some examples, like program or event tickets that had to do with Bay Oaks, for example, or no shows at events or programs, or return of merchandise, mooring field reservations, water refunds, I suppose it would be the types of water refunds that are issued. And there are some stormwater refund policies also incorporated into this that comes really from state statutes. But since it was nicely provided by the water department, I incorporated that into this as well. So it may not address every single circumstance, but it seemed like to be a good start for a policy.
If I can add a little bit more, this was not something we just decided that we would provide to you. There was actually a request made from one of your residents for a refund of some fees and my inquiry was, what is the town's policy? And I was told that we really don't have one. And different departments handle different issues. So the intent was to formalize what is currently being done. So we do have an official policy. So when people come and request a refund from you, that you'll have some guidance to go back to. So this would be the attempt to establish the policy. And in the very near future, you're going to get a request for a refund.
Okay. Got a question?
Well, I have a big question. So the mooring field, 100% refund, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, most hotels, if you have a cancellation, you know, within a certain time frame, we at least keep $50, not $5. And then if somebody decides to leave early, I mean, you've got that mooring ball in your system already pegged. I don't think they should get a refund if they leave early, unless it's for a hurricane or extenuating circumstances. But if the mooring field needs to break even, correct?
Yes.
But I think we have to take a long, hard look at that, because when somebody cancels, when somebody makes a reservation, you're taking time, your staff's taking time. When they make a cancellation, it's taking time. I mean, I've been living this in the hotel world for 12 years. It just, you're losing money if you have that policy. And I don't know if it's every mooring field has that policy or that we're just being nice guys, but it doesn't make fiscal sense to me. If we can change that, I would highly suggest,
Well, and also it takes it out of commission, and who knows if you'll rebook it.
yeah, it's really tough to rebook that ball. I mean, it's
Are you saying within, say, like a 72-hour window, or?
well, typically what we do in the hotel world is if they cancel within 30 days, it's just a $50 fee. We refund all the money. If it's inside 30 days and you have that expectation that they're going to show up, we used to refund half or keep the entire monies. And certainly when people leave early, unless it's an extenuating circumstance,
It's their choice.
it's their choice. We don't refund the money. It's just standard policy. Or you can also keep it as a credit for a future stay or whatever.
That might be a good idea.
I mean, so if somebody, well, the hurricane was a whole different deal, but if
Sure.
people in the past, if they made a reservation, they canceled within 30 days, I'd keep the money for a year and let them, rebook and use those funds. But it just makes this fiscal sense to not just, oh, you're not coming. Oh, okay, here's your money back.
I like that a lot because it's still a welcoming kind of thing. It's not.
Punitive.
Yes.
I have no issues with
Yeah,
that.
I like
Yeah,
that too.
I don't either.
So is the suggestion then if they cancel less than 30-day notice
Well,
that we,
any cancellation is a $50 fee.
okay,
If it's outside 30 days, you refund their money less the $50. If it's inside 30 days, there's no refund, but they can use that money as a credit for a calendar year. If they leave early, no way, no how, unless they don't get a refund,
Unless there's a storm.
unless there's a storm or there's extenuating circumstances.
But it's a safe harbor, so
Yeah.
why would you want to leave?
Even if there's a storm, I mean, in rental things, you don't refund money because you can't control the weather.
Yeah, I mean, well, so with the hurricane, I mean, we refund the money. But you know, if it's a storm or a hurricane, then absolutely refund the money. That's just good policy, and that there shouldn't be a fee involved with that. But that's the extenuating circumstance. But otherwise, I mean, you're taking so much staff time. People book and cancel, and, you know, it just doesn't make sense.
I have a question for Joe, just to clarify, because I'm not sure if it's in here or not, but the success or failure to obtain a permit, would that be eligible for refunds?
I don't know.
And that might be some direction that we want to seek. So if I were to apply for a particular, say, a special exception and I won, is that a basis to refund my fee? No. And the reason for that is the policy is because our fees are intended to cover the administrative costs
Right.
of
Exactly.
processing them.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify
And if
that.
they were denied, they don't get refunded either because the work went in. to
Correct.
everything. Yeah,
Okay,
that's what I feel anyway. I'm answering. that.
so that probably should be reflected in there somehow.
Specifically for
For
what type of
reviews that occur,
reviews?
administrative reviews, that, you know, the fees that are charged are for the
Cost of administrative.
cost of the administrative review and are not dependent on the success or failure on the merits to obtain the permit. We just need guidance. So I think you've given it to
Yeah.
us.
If I may interject to Council Safford's comments, you know, we look at our daily rate, weekly rate, monthly rate. If we're going to do that, we need to accommodate for those three categories. Not just, you know, we do have people that do rent the mooring field or that ball for a month or for the season. And if they cancel, you're out of a large chunk of change. Do you want to look at those rates or just a flat? like you
Well,
said?
I guess my question is, what's our cancellation rate? Is it, do we have a lot of cancellations?
Currently, it's not. Currently, we're actually doing really well.
Okay. So
You know,
then,
but in
that
even
being
in
the
the dead
case,
part of
then-
season, I mean, for us, we're doing very well. Now, that doesn't say that, again, things come up, but if you're gonna make this uniform, should we?
no, it should be across the board. It's the same thing with, you know, in the hotel industry, you get people that book for a night, you get people that book for a week, a month, a season. So we have the same policy. It makes it easier.
Okay.
And it makes it easier to, you know, for your staff to manage too.
And I'm on board with all that.
And is there any acknowledgement if someone calls to book that they acknowledge the cancellation policy? Does that have to go into any of the writing? I mean, if someone just calls in to book.
It does, and we're actually working with our harbor master right now to make sure that the document that DACWA uses for the reservations would have that language. So we'll make sure that what you
Well,
do tonight.
So that was my first question is this just common practice with mooring fields that they just give 100% refund? I don't know. I don't live in that space.
Don't know. I just compiled this information from the various departments, so I don't have any
Sure, that's fair.
firsthand
I understand.
knowledge. So I apologize.
Well, it sounds to me, it's a pretty fair cancellation policy. I mean, 30 days is, most people know within 30 days if they're not coming or.
Yeah.
It's the ones that call you 3 days before and say, oh, I'm not coming, decided to go somewhere else. You got to be able to recover your costs.
Right, because you probably won't rent that again
Yeah.
in 3 days.
No, you're losing out on
You're
that.
losing out on the whole thing. So,
You got direction there, Joe?
I do. Thank you. This was good to find out your opinion on it. So that was good.
Anything else, Scott, with the
No.
fee refund? Counselor Woodson?
no, but at any time, I'm ready to continue to talk about the mooring field.
Yeah, let's get through the refund part of it
Okay.
first.
Okay.
Vice
So I
Mayor,
think-
do you have any?
No,
No? Counselor
Um,
King?
Done.
Okay, I think we're good with the refund part of it.
So that is all I had, other than if you're interested in the short-term rental analysis, but that's the only other part of this presentation I have
Yeah.
left. So should
Go
I
ahead.
proceed with that?
Yep.
Okay, so this is just to update you on our research for short-term rental. We tried to delve into the cost of the program more than we had before. We we took, we questioned the people who could be involved. We asked from the town manager's office, so that was Frankie's time that he suggested that be allocated a small portion of his time to short-term rental. We pulled the town attorney, and so they have their legal services, a certain amount per, I think, per week or per month at their rate. And so we have that incorporated in. We have software. We found out that there's actually 2 softwares involved. One is Granicus, which is specific to short-term rental tracking, and then the other is iWorks, which is where the actual reservations are kept. So we have the software costs incorporated, and then we have the personnel. So we have the administrative person who actually takes the reservations, process or applications, processes them, and then we have enforcement personnel. And so I worked with Tom Huzzo on that, and there's like the supervisor's time, a little small portion of their time, as well as the actual code enforcement person who would go out. So based on all of that, and then did an analysis of a deeper analysis into trying to figure out how many short-term rental units we actually were dealing with. I tried first of all to do it based on our revenues on the revenue side, but that turned into an impossible exercise. So I finally was able to do it through the system where the actual reservations are kept and get the names of the unit and addresses of the units. So to actually come up with the actual number of units. And what I found out, and this may not be 100% accurate, but it's very close. There was 1,912 units in 2022, so right before Hurricane Ian. And now we have type of revenue we'd be bringing in comparison to the cost, because some of the cost is fixed costs, the software, the legal services. The variable cost would be the enforcement personnel, the administrative. That's based on the number of units. So based on the number of units of 950 units, roughly, well, almost half, 55% of the revenue is covering the cost. The remaining revenue would go into the workforce development program. That's about 45%. So that's my analysis, and incorporated this into the budget for next year to just have something in the budget for short-term rental.
Where do we have workforce housing?
Do I have workforce housing? Oh, no, this is, do I have workforce housing? Oh, no, did I?
Portion that's supposed to.
Right.
Go towards it.
Dedicated.
It's still in there. It's still part of the fee schedule, that of the portion of any remaining portion of the fees collected. That goes before, but now that they're starting to increase and the revenue coming in is surpassing the fixed cost side of things, now we're starting to generate more revenue.
That's great. Thank you.
So
Go ahead.
I have a
we're
question on
gonna
this
say-
workforce housing. We probably have the same thing. I mean, there was a time that we were talking about that. I mean, I don't think we're still talking about workforce housing. And do we even want that category, and where should those profits, if you will, or excess money go into, that we can actually use it for something?
Well, if I remember correctly, it was 2022 when these rates changed from, I think it was $50 then to $300,
Plus $100 per bed.
which we did away with right after the
Right.
storm. But
Right.
it stayed at 300, but then it was voted on. I don't think you or I voted for it, but I think it was voted on and passed 3-2 to do this percentage that you're looking at now. To your point, workforce housing has kind of sailed. We've tried a couple times. I don't know now after the storm that it's going to be a reality. So are we collecting money and storing money into a bucket that is never going to be used?
Or could be used.
It could be used for something else.
Which makes more sense.
Felt like last year when I brought this up that it was just $1 or some $3 or something out of that was going because of the cost of staff administering the short-term rentals.
That's true. And that was based on the volume at that time that was projected for 2024. So it was a barely break even at that point. But now that the volume is increasing, it is going to be generating more revenue than the cost.
And plus with the software, we'll be saving money that way too, right?
With the new software
Yeah.
that's been proposed, that's what I've heard. I've not seen it yet, and that's not factored into this.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just want, thank you.
And we can certainly change the allocation of where this excess revenue is going. I think it would just take a simple resolution as to where you would like to see it directed or temporarily directed until a decision is made.
Is that something, Nancy, we can do outside of this meeting between now and the end of fiscal year?
Well, I think so, yes, because it would just be a budget amendment,
Mhm.
which we could do throughout the year.
Sure.
Because there may be things that come up over the next year pertaining to short-term rentals that we don't know about. That these fees could be moved into something else.
Sure.
At one time, former interim manager Wilkins and I discussed moving that into any obligation we might have to the school district for our interlocal agreement regarding that.
Makes sense.
I think that's really interesting. Nancy, are there any issues when we were negotiating the interlocal agreement with a school district? There were some constraints on what the school could accept from the town and not-for-profits, and there's just sort of a unique dynamic about the town, how the town can best help the school financially. And this may come up again when we talk about impact as well. It gets to be a little bit of a sticky wicket, but I like the idea. You might want to just think about that.
Thank you. I'll look for that interlocal and kind of
Mhm.
see where we are on those issues.
I think this would be a good discussion to put on an M&P
Mhm.
and allow you
Okay.
time to be able to
Yep.
gather that information, because that's an intriguing thought.
Yeah, and are there any restrictions on what you can use short-term rental money for? I mean, I don't know if the state has any restrictions on what excess money and what buckets that can go into. I don't know.
Joe, is that the figure for FY 25?
It is.
Okay, so there's some in the bucket now, right?
There is.
How much do we know?
It's
not a lot.
not a lot. Well, it may be about, I have the number
That sounds
175,000
right. That's what-
in my mind, but somewhere close to that.
Just give them something to think about.
Just as
Bonuses?
as we chew on this, well, we can talk about this in M&P, but as we chew on this issue, the interlocal agreement is a 4-year agreement. And so when that 4 years are up, if the way the interlocal agreement reads, if enrollment is not at the appropriate threshold and/or the cost per student is not at the appropriate threshold, then one of two things could happen. Number one, the school could close, or the town could be asked in some capacity to offset that per pupil cost to make it more equal with other barrier island schools. And so that would in essence be a subsidy of some sort. So that might come in handy at some point. I think, again, the school's doing great. We're up to 62 kids, but it's still, it's still a struggle. Obviously, we're still early in our recovery too. So I'm hoping things continue to get better, but that might be a nice little bucket there in case push comes to shove, when the 4 years is up. I hope that doesn't happen, but it'd be nice to have some funds available, assuming Nancy could make it legally work. Yeah.
So far, so good, Joe.
Yes, thank you. The only other thing I have regarding this is I noticed there's a typo in the resolution itself, when it's saying that the next hearing that's mentioned in this resolution is going to be at Diamond Head Beach Resort. It has the correct address, but that Diamond Head Beach Resort should be crossed out. So,
Okay. You can fix that between now and the next hearing.
yes, I will.
All right, well, let's start with you ready to go through the rest of it? Or is there,
Were there more questions regarding fees or?
I'm guessing there's probably going to be some questions about some other fee areas outside of what you just discussed.
Yes, I'm finished with these from my
Okay.
presentation portion.
We'll start down there with you, Scott.
I'll let you go first.
Can you give me a second?
Sure, we'll come back to
Start
you.
with John.
All right, John, we'll start with you.
I'll pass.
Vice Mayor Adderholt.
Yeah, thank you. If we could go to the water section and the stormwater review fees. A few years back, Joe, long before your time, in fact, the mayor and I were just relatively new on the council. I got involved in a little project with our then town manager to make sure that our rates, or utility rates, reflect the actual true costs of the utility. In other words, before then, the town's general budget, general fund budget was subsidizing the utilities. So we did a rate study, and the rate study called for an adjustment of the rates so the utilities could then be self-sufficient and not be subsidized. We tried to create a firewall between the general fund and the utilities, because a lot of municipalities will either subsidize the utilities or the utilities will subsidize the general fund in a variety of different capacities. I just wanted to make sure, A, is that firewall still in place? And B, when are we up for a new rate study to get a sense of where we're at in that process?
Those are very good questions. In terms of a firewall, I'm not sure what you mean, other than I can comment on there's no need to subsidize stormwater and water at this moment. But the rate study that had been authorized, or the study that was authorized, and then the rate schedule of increases that had been authorized, that the last year was 2024. So we're due for a new set of rates and a rate study. We do have a consulting firm that's already been hired several months ago now, and they were in the process of collecting information, and they're actually waiting on me to give them further information for the plan. And I think now that we're kind of coming out of emergency mode and we have a clearer picture of more so than what we had before, I think I'm in a better place where I can provide them with that information. And so we should be able to then update the rate study and see where we're at, and then see what type of increases may be necessary going forward.
Is this firm prepared to do a full cost of service study?
That is my understanding. It would be similar. They're going to do it in the same format, but it's more like software related, so that we have kind of control to plug in the variables and see the different scenarios that play out. And the goal, from what I understand, it's been a while since I've seen it, is that it's to kind of stabilize the rates so that we're not having to do sudden increases, but to kind of plan it out over several years.
We
So
used to call that eliminate rate shock.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So that's what if we follow that program, that's how it should be. We just need to get it done.
I think that's great. One of the things I would just say, and good that Nancy's here, just a little history. One of the things that precipitated this effort was, and there was no ill intent. It was just a reality. With this various subsidization that was going on, particularly in the stormwater arena with general funds, you bump up against, there's some entities on this island that have their own stormwater system, and they fund it themselves. They fund all the infrastructure, the maintenance, etc. And they take umbrage when their general fund monies are used to subsidize the stormwater system. And there was discussion, if the town didn't course correct, of having some litigation. They didn't want to do that, but fortunately we're able to work through it. And so I would just, as you talk to these various folks that are doing the cost of service study, and as you're thinking just policy wise, let's do our best to avoid that subsidization, so we avoid any bumping heads with our sort of, for lack of a better term, quasi-private utilities on the island.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. I think something that did help us, because like water revenues did drop significantly as a result of the damage from Hurricane Ian. But one of the things that helped us was the state revolving loan fund program. They deferred payments for 2 years. And so that prevented us from having to do anything like subsidize the water fund during this, loss in revenue period. So I think we were protected from that happening in that respect.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's all I've got.
Counselor Woodson?
So I wanted to go back to the mooring fields, the daily, weekly, monthly rate. And we had talked about, or at least we had conversations a few months ago. Is this breaking even? Is it still costing us money? Have we done any analysis on that? What I'm getting to are these fees too low? Are we covered with everything? Should these be raised, and kind of what is there a standard for other mooring fields that we're not equal with, or?
I don't know how to answer that last part of your question. I don't know.
We'll start with the
as far
first
as-
part.
I don't have any experience there yet. I've not been, no information of that nature has been shared with me.
Joe, can I just help on that?
Yes.
Because we just had this
Oh,
just
good.
came up at our Anchorage Advisory Committee, and
excellent.
Kurt, our new harbor master, he did a sort of an informal survey
Oh,
of
great.
all the pricing throughout Southwest Florida. And he said we're almost in that perfect sweet spot at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Was talking about raising the rate.
He was considering that.
Considering,
Yeah,
yes.
if the data comes forth to demonstrate the need to, but at this point, I think he was just exploring it at this point. What's
Okay.
ready to do it this cycle?
Did you guys have a discussion that there's mooring balls that are more favorable?
Yes, we did.
So
There was quite a debate about that, Counselor Safford, and I don't think anybody came to any particular conclusion, but it was a good discussion, and it's a valid point, but I don't think Kurt, our harbor master, was quite ready to take that step. I don't know if that was out of just the fact that it complicates matters, but there was a lot of discussion that was sympathetic to that concept, but I just don't think Kurt was ready to take that step yet. But
Okay. Like, I don't know. So I just don't know that if other mooring fields have, prime spots and they charge a little bit more for those.
it's a great question. I think that is indeed the case in certain instances, and I think, again, I think the committee was pushing Kurt on that, and I think he's still open to the concept.
That would seem like easy money if you've got a spot that's people want to be, wherever.
Yep,
Closer to the dinghy
prime
dock.
spots, and there's certain types of boats that you charge more for based upon length, but each time that somebody made that train of thought go forward, there was somebody else that had a counter thought, and so there was not an agreement reached, but it was a good discussion, and I think Kurt, our harbor master, once he's really starting to really get his feet on the ground here, and he's very knowledgeable. I think he's certainly open to all those ideas. I just don't think he's prepared to do it this cycle, but once he gets a little bit more data, we haven't lived in a normal world for a while, so
Right.
as soon as he gets some normal data, I think he's open to those kind of suggestions. But it's a good point, and it's a very valid point.
To answer your question, Curtis and I have had those discussions. I'm a proponent of upping it, even at a $5 clip per each. It allows us a little bit more freedom. As far as the favorable spots, you can imagine which ones they are. They're the ones right either to the west of the bridge or the east of the bridge, depending on how you want to look at it. That first grouping are the ones that are conducive to the downtown. They're conducive to where the dinghy dock is that we're going to be, the one we have now, the one that we're proposing to replace it with. That is where the upland services are located. So yes, those would be the prime candidates going into any kind of discussion. Trying to figure out a way to get those in some type of A, B, or C status. That's still an ongoing discussion with Curtis.
Okay. And we can always do an amendment once he
Yes.
gets the
Yes.
data.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd be all for that. If we've got prime real estate
Yeah.
let's get prime money for it.
I think if the council at some point formally charges the Anchorage Advisory Committee to implement something like that or research it and implement it, I think that direction would be appreciated as well. Sounds like we've got it.
I think we have,
I
I
think
think
we should do
we're, I
that.
think we're there.
All right.
Cleaning lady.
Cleaning staff.
That was mine.
That was yours?
That was mine for now.
Okay.
Oh, I was gonna speak about that, but I have one other
Cleaning
question
staff.
about Newton Park fee schedule. I mean, half the stuff isn't there anymore.
Well, and I think that's why they didn't change anything.
You
either.
just want to leave that, so when the park does come back, we know what the
Same
fees
thing
were.
with Bay Oaks and the pool. It's the
Yeah.
same thing.
And we can always revisit these by resolution throughout the year.
Yes.
It's not set in stone.
Right.
Okay. I was just asking a question.
Anything else? Nope. I got just a couple, and I don't know that it's something that can be changed now or if we want to look at it later, but you know, as we've been going through this rebuild process, when we were back in Diamond Head, we had a lot of talk about the cost for someone that wanted to put a fence back that was there before. We know it was there before, but $2,000 that have to be spent by a homeowner that had to get the approval to get a special exception to put their fence back. Is there a way that we can look at this? Maybe it can't happen now, but I really want to look at some of these things under the public hearing parts, the special exception and the variances. I mean, to be across the board, a single fee that, I mean, for a small project, it doesn't make sense for someone to have to pay $1,800 to replace a fence that was there before, even though you have to go through the process. I don't know if we can do that via the sides of the project or just to me, a blanket, you know, a blanket fee for a special exception. There's not as much review time that goes into, say, setbacks or.
Yeah, I mean, when somebody has 3 setbacks, it's that you need pay 3 fees. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, the dollar amount, I mean, it's 3 different things the staff has to look at, but if you're looking at a fence versus a house, I mean, there's a whole.
Well, no, I'm talking more fence.
So it's something I don't necessarily think you need to change it by the next hearing, but it's something that I would like to look at throughout the year. Maybe we bring it back to an M&P to take a look at to what's a good way with the planning staff, how we can lay this out. So smaller projects aren't paying what a big developer would be paying for the same exact service.
I believe when we were reaching out to the various departments, my understanding is I think they're looking at those fees probably based
Okay.
upon the comments that were made at previous meetings. So, but there is nothing ready. There was nothing
Okay.
ready for us to incorporate into this.
So it's
Schedule.
still in the radar.
As far as I understand it, yes.
The other 2 things is kind of that's falling into this. Do we have any idea? Are we getting any closer to the impact fee discussion? That we,
I believe we are. I think I have to check with Jason Green on that, but we should be wrapping that up very, very quickly.
okay, so that can come back to us
Yes,
fairly
sir.
quickly.
We have a meeting with Jason and Sarah this week. We do, so we'll bring that up and see where they are.
Okay.
But we can bring it, I think we are getting close to wrapping that up.
And then the other thing that I have is just a suggestion and we'll see if it goes anywhere. How many parking passes, resident parking passes do we usually hand out a year?
I honestly don't have that information, sir. I can get that for you.
I'm just wondering if we can, you know, we charge $25. I wonder if that would be something that we could maybe give to them for nothing. But is that a huge loss of revenue? You know, I mean, is it, how much administrative time goes into giving those parking
Or at
passes
least,
out?
or at least the cost of the actual $2.50 to
The sticker.
buy the sticker or buy, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know how much administrative cost
Something-
goes into it.
something
Just
cheap.
something to try to provide a little bit of relief to, I mean, I don't know, again, I don't know.
We'll look at
By the next meeting, if you can look at it, and if it's something that the council doesn't even want to entertain, don't waste your time on it, but it's, what do you think, John?
I'm always willing to listen.
Look at that answer. Wait, Matter.
You woke me up, so I had to come up with something.
Ditto to that.
Okay, yeah. Just at least bring it back for the next hearing to see how many, what does that number look like?
We
Yes.
we can get all that information for you right away.
I don't want you to have to redo your whole budget because of a parking pass. Not that I think it will, but,
Okay. All right. Thank you. I can do that.
all right, that's all I have. Any other comments on the tentative fee schedule? If not, then we're gonna take a vote to table this one, then work our way backwards? Is that correct?
I think you can go ahead and take
We
a
can.
vote on it,
Okay.
yes.
Is there a motion to approve or deny the resolution 24-176 fiscal year 25 tentative fee schedule?
So moved.
Motion by Counselor King,
Second.
seconded by Counselor Safford. Any further discussion? Counselor King,
Aye.
Counselor Safford,
Aye.
Counselor Woodson,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt. And I'm an aye. Motion carries unanimously.
We didn't have
Oh,
public
public
comment.
comment. Would you like to come and speak in public comment?
Okay, moving
Ready
on.
for dinner. You-
Yes, yes. Okay, now we will, is
We're gonna reopen
Yes.
number A.
Yep. number A?
No,
Number A.
No,
number
no,
B.
B.
Reopen
We
B.
gotta reopen B,
Number B.
You have to do the millage rate first.
but I thought we have to talk about it,
Number B.
then table it again and then go back up.
If you would like, that would be fine, as long as your vote on
On
the
the
millage rate
is
is
first.
before the tentative budget. I don't have a concern if you want to close it or reopen it. It's okay,
I just, it's the way we've always done it in the past. So
I understand.
Is there a motion to reopen resolution 24-175 fiscal year 25 tentative budget?
So moved.
Got a motion-
Second.
a motion by Counselor Woodson, seconded by Counselor Safford. Any discussion? Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Counselor King?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. The hearing is back open. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, no, I don't know if this will confuse things, but I do have within my presentation a section in the first part that does address the millage rate. Is that okay to talk about it now?
Sure, you can discuss it, but
Okay.
then we'll have to close this
Yeah.
hearing again and open the
Table it and then
millage.
open the, yes.
Okay.
If for some reason, that's how we've always done it in the past, just so that
I think
you
we
have a
have a
better
better
understanding
way.
of-
So next year we'll try to give
make
you
it a
some
little cleaner.
options.
Okay,
Yeah.
Perfect. Love that idea.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead.
So what I would like to just start with is just to kind of give you an idea of what's all in the presentation. So I've got guiding principles of how the budget was put together. It does talk about the proposed millage rate and the rollback rate, the general fund budget, basic components, the use of the bridge loan, the changes in the personnel position count. There's a general fund budget by department and category. Then there's a total budget by fund and category, and then we talk about debt service. And then there's one correction that needs to be made to the debt service budget that I've discovered when I was reviewing things in preparation for this presentation. So the guiding principles, to give you and the public an idea of what we were doing when putting this together. First of all, we would like to and need to achieve a structurally balanced zero-based budget. I think that's important to understand. Structurally balanced means that we have recurring revenues matched up with recurring expenditures, non-recurring revenues with non-recurring expenditures. We're in a kind of a difficult situation with our loss of revenues. Fortunately, we have the bridge loan there. So that's really the one exception to a structurally balanced budget that we have. That's just the nature of recovering from a disaster. And zero-based is that we don't just take what we had last year and maybe increase it 5% or whatever. We actually look at every single line item. We start with the personnel budget and just look at that, the actual cost of benefits, and that's the bulk of the budget. And then from there, we go through every single line item. The department heads do that for us, and then they determine what is needed for the specific year coming up. And we look at that very closely with them. We're also, based on previous discussions with you all and comments at meetings, the intent was to maintain the current millage rate and not to increase it. We're limiting the use of the bridge loan to just cover the non-ad valorem revenue loss. So we're not using the bridge loan just to do extra things. We're just trying to limit it to covering only the revenue loss. We wanted to stabilize the personnel budget. And from my perspective, that's really already taken place in the stabilization of the organizational chart. But by stabilizing the budget too, then we don't have so many variables of things changing. It's really starting to solidify, and because of that, we've been able to narrow the budget down, and we have a more restricted in that sense. And one of the things is wanted to do is strengthen the reserves, and then also we're limiting capital improvement budget to disaster recovery because that's pretty much all we can handle right now. The organizational chart is under constant review.
Joe, on the capital improvement
Yes.
budget, just since we're up high, 10,000 feet, how do you manage that, given that you get these little wonderful surprises from Andy and Frankie of $13 million coming in that don't, obviously, they're not budgeted for, but obviously that helps your capital budget demonstrably. How are you managing these infusions of help from our friends at the state, federal level, and county level?
Well, as they occur, we part of it is we don't just get it; we have to authorize the acceptance. They had a very elaborate, actually, when we look into it, replacement program where they had they calculated the cost of every single piece of equipment down to the gym equipment in Bay Oaks, and then what it would cost to replace it over time, so that we're always putting enough money in over time in order to replace these things when they
Almost like a reserve fund?
yeah, so there is a reserve fund for that purpose. So there is that amount there, and because so much has been already destroyed and is being replaced, the only way what I've done to manage that is just to assume that we're going to spend maybe a quarter of it each year for various replacements. But there's really nothing specific in mind. It's just there, it's available. If we need more than that, we can do a budget adjustment. But we have those small amounts available for each department. And so that's currently in the capital budget. It's not certainly for a wish list item. And we honestly, because of our revenue shortfalls, we just don't have any excess revenues coming in that would allow for that, like we may have had in the past. And so I think that's also why we're not doing that. But then beyond that, we're restricted by our bridge loan terms, where if we do have excess revenue coming in, we are to use it to repay the bridge loan rather than capital projects. So we're just in a tough spot in that respect. So I mean, it's wonderful that we're getting infusions of cash and forms of grant that we can do these projects with, but we don't have anything extra yet. We're not in that spot. Maybe soon we will be, but not now.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so I think I must have backed up. Yep. Okay, so talking about the structurally balanced zero-based budget, the organizational chart is under constant review by the town manager, and that's in order to achieve operational efficiency and improve performance. So there have been many changes and improvements along the way, and that's been stabilizing. We have very few vacancies now. The personnel budget that is in the budget was set based on the current organizational chart. It's using the current salaries and wages that are in place now, but it is incorporating the benefit rates according to the renewal rates. So we have that. Also in the budget is an amount that was set aside for a COLA increase of 1.8%. This is based on the cost of living or the CPI index as of May. And partly why I chose that is because that was what was available when we put together the preliminary. That was also what was in place when the Evergreen study was done and when they were doing the research and the comparisons. So I thought that's kind of a good baseline to measure from in terms of and I'll use that going forward. Well, we'll take it as of May to measure the cost of living. So that's like the annual increase as of May. And then there's also a budget for what's called the annual step increases. And this is within the salary grade levels for each of the individual positions, where each year of experience that a person has with the town, the schedule is set up so that they move up a notch in that salary grade level. So there'll be like 2 types of increases each person employee will receive, and that's the COLA increase and then the step increase. And both of those are really modest amounts, so there's nothing extraordinary there.
Are those based on performances? Well, the COLA obviously is not, but the step increase, is that based on performance?
No, it's sure.
That'll be part, once we do this, get the strategic plan in place, that a lot of things will start tying into performance measures.
Right. So the increases that will go year over year are not based on performance. They are just based on, if you're going to come work for the town, you're going to be here for 20 years. This is what you, in the same role, this is what you can expect to as your base.
Together. In my experience in state government, we had a very innovative plan that not only rewarded performance, but also disciplined lack of performance. In other words, you've got meets, exceeds, and then does not meet. And then the does not meet gets put on a work improvement plan.
Correct.
And if they're not satisfying that, then they've got to go find something else to do.
Yes, we have 2 metrics that are does not meet and needs improvement. And when those are applied, it is required that the supervisor break out exactly what are we looking at, what needs to be improved, and then what is the plan to do so. So when that happens, a performance improvement plan would be put in place, and then there will be a timeline as the performance improvement plan would be put in place, and then there will be a timeline established, which they'll have to follow up with HR and to ensure, are we moving in the right direction, or do we have an issue there that needs to be addressed?
I think that's great because I think sometimes an employee that's not performing can bring down the morale of those who are,
Correct.
and
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a cancer, for lack of a better term.
Absolutely. And that's why I also want to incorporate that the performance reviews are done upon like within the first 6 months, which is our introductory period, so that we're really opening up that line of communication between the supervisor and the employee from the beginning and annually to say what's going right, what's going wrong, because we don't do that enough. Then that's what we're finding. And then, we want to do a better job as the employer to say, we've given you the tools that you need and the open line of communication that you need to be successful. And so when that's not happening, it's never a surprise to the employee, and we need to do a better job of that. So I'm excited to get it implemented.
One last question, then I'll be
Sure.
quiet. But Andy, we've talked about this in the past. There is a little bit of a perception out there in the public because the paradigm in the previous pre-Ian world, we had a lot of employees who were not actually employees. They were consultants to the town. And then when you filled those spots with town employees, bringing things in-house, which I think there was a clear desire amongst folks to have you do, it gave the appearance that somehow we've added headcount here. And I don't think that's a fair characterization. Do you want to comment on that? Just give people a sense of that.
Correct. No, we have not. I don't think I have hired anybody in this room,
Well, I know you didn't hire me.
this side of the table. My point is they were all in place when I got here. Maybe we moved the parts and put them different places and assigned them. But I believe we've actually reduced the staffing levels by, I don't know the number, but we do. I've looked at it last time we had this conversation, or when it came up when the millage rate was discussed back in the Court of Public Opinion that I addressed. I think the mayor and I spoke about it, that we'd actually reduced the budget. $2 million. I believe we were operating on $2 million less this year than we did the previous years. And we also even reduced it even more as the year went along. So the numbers are lower than they were. And actually what you're right, you are correct. We filled positions. I think, these have a couple of departments we didn't hire directors, we just gave them extra responsibility because that's really, I'm more about thinning at the top and getting more workers at the bottom. So, and one other thing we do, you can also go to, a performance-based bonus system, and that doesn't compound annually on your budget either as you go forward. I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at how, one-time payment that we will be looking at several options as we go forward.
And I know this is complicated, but to simplify, is it fair to say that the head count post-Ian is lower than the head count pre-Ian?
I believe that is correct, yes.
I want to say the number is 5.
It's not a
I'm
lot.
trying to find it in here, but I want to say it was a net of 5, something like that.
Net growth or net?
Less.
Less.
Yes.
I think that's
It
really
is less.
Yeah, I think that's important because I hear around town every once in a while that, we're hiring all these people, we head count, big government, no more government light. So just for the record, we currently have 5 less employees than we did pre-Ian.
I want to say that's
I
the
think
number.
it's more than that.
I
Yeah,
can
I'm
give
trying-
you the exact number, but I'm quite certain it is lower, and that sounds about
Absolutely.
right.
Okay, I just
From-
want to get that out there
Yep.
for the
Yeah,
public
it's
record.
in
Yeah.
this. It's in here. I'm just trying to
Yeah,
find it.
all right, thank you.
What
That's all
page
I've
it's
got.
And just to support what Andy said, what we've been able to do is really take an assessment of organizationally where we're standing, and for a smaller government, enhance where our strengths are and move people around. And so because of that, we actually are maybe hiring more of the support level roles so that we have a higher output in the resident support, and really being strategic about where in the executive level staff and and we really are trying to strengthen our middle management as well. So I think we've done a really great job in the last year and a half that I've been here, and we hope to continue to do that.
I think you have to. I just always encourage our town
Oh, I love
manager to
that.
tell his story
Yes.
because he has a very good story to tell. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think I already commented on how each non-personnel operational line item is carefully adjusted by the department heads. So capital budget items are only incorporated to the extent that costs and funding sources are known. And then we'll continue to add projects through budget adjustments. So revenues were estimated conservatively. We're looking at historical trends and then adjusted for future expectations. Otherwise, we incorporated specific grant amounts, or in a few cases, we received some government forecast amounts that we used. Interest revenue was actually calculated more deliberately this time around, using the cash flow projection that I was able to put together, and then using Morningstar's forecast that they're predicting that the federal funds rate will drop to 2.75% by the end of fiscal year 25. Whether that happens or not, I don't know, but that's what I used to calculate the interest. Right now, we're actually earning around 5% interest, and that's just in our regular operating accounts at the bank, which is very good. The budget was carefully compiled by the budget manager, myself. We had input from directors, from the town manager. It was submitted, and I'm saying this really for public consumption. It was submitted to the town council for review on July 15th, as you know, and it's undergone continuous review and refinement. And we've provided a few updates along the way to you to try to keep you informed as to what's happening. So now we're into the actual millage rate portion of the presentation. So we are proposing to keep the millage rate the same for FY25 as it was for FY24, and it's at 0.99. And so the reason why we're doing that is in conjunction with the bridge loan and other revenues that the town is forecasting to collect. There will be sufficient revenue to sustain operations and to add to the emergency fund, and that's that $425,000 addition that I had recommended that we do. So we're able to accomplish all that by leaving the millage rate at 0.99. Now, the rollback rate is calculated as 0.6561. That's the millage rate that's necessary to generate the same amount of tax revenue as was generated the prior year, but using the current year's appraised value before taking into account additions, new construction, deletions. So that's the rate it would take to generate same amount of tax revenue as generated the prior year. And that's because the prior year, I can pause here and explain that last year we lost 42% of the taxable value as well as 42% of our ad valorem tax. And so because we lost that, that is why by leaving the rate at 0.99%.
Went to a rollback rate or somewhere
Mhm.
in between. Doesn't that pretty much come directly out of the emergency fund that we're trying to establish? Or
Well, it would. I mean, basically, we're dropping back to the tax revenue that we had when the taxable values dropped, plummeted by 42%. So if you were to continue with that rate, we'd be generating the same amount of tax revenue.
well,
And-
and as well, it counts with
Is into this where, although we're still using the same millage rate in FY25 as what we had in FY24 and 23, we're still only going to collect $600,000 of property tax than we had before.
Less.
Less,
Right.
less than what we collected at the time, right before Hurricane Ian. So it looks like we're increasing, and it is when you compare it to the rate, but revenue-wise, we're not where we were before Hurricane Ian. And then this is just an interesting fact, just to show a comparison of where town of Fort Myers Beach's portion of the tax bill lies. When someone is to receive a tax bill, the town's portion is only 6.2%, and all of the other taxing bodies have much higher percentages and some have lower.
Joe, for those who can't see the chart who are watching this presentation, would you just mind reading those top 5 and the number and then maybe a couple afterwards?
Sure. So we have the public school by state law. Their share of the tax rate is 26.6%. Lee County general revenue is 23.4%. Public schools by the local board is 18.8%. Fort Myers Beach Fire District is 18.5%. And then we have Town of Fort Myers Beach, only 6.2%. Lee County Solid Waste Assessment is 2.6%. Fort Myers Beach Library is 1.5%.
Thank you.
Surrounding millage rates is just another chart for comparison purposes. You can see that this is just going through 2024. We're down in the lower end where we have the city of Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Punta Gorda, city of Sanibel, Marco Island, Naples, all having higher millage rates than we do. City of Bonita Springs and Village of Estero have slightly lower rates than we do. I apologize how hard this is to see. It looked great on my computer screen. I'm not even sure if I can read this. But what I was trying to do here is to give you just a sense of the basic components of the budget. What I'm calling base revenues is everything that's not listed below. So base revenue does not include the increase in ad valorem property tax. It does not include the bridge loan. It does not include the amounts that we're using out of the reserve that we were given a few years back for Estero Boulevard landscaping. It does not include the transfer from ARPA or let's see, the landscaping. And then we also, that reverse transfer that we took back last year out of the capital fund for turtle lighting. So all of those things, the use of reserves, interest revenue, I'm pulling all of that out of base revenue just to give a year-to-year comparison. So if you look at anything other than those items, our revenues are actually starting to increase from 2024 to 2025. And that's because we had a huge drop. And like one major component would be parking, but now it's starting to come back. So it's a modest increase of 332,000. The increase of ad valorem tax revenue is 1.3 million. And then we're using the bridge loan of 2.8 million. We're budgeting the use of the reserve amount that we had for the Estero Boulevard landscaping. And then we had a small use of reserves, $50,000. It's just a carryover of savings from this year that we had budgeted for vehicles that is not going to be spent this year, so it's carrying forward next year. And then we have the interest revenue. It's going down because of the projected decrease in interest rates. But we had a substantial amount of interest 2024 and again in 2025, but it'll be $75,000 less budget-wise. Our expenditures are actually, it's a positive number there, but that's because it's contributing a positive variance. So our expenditures are actually down 643,000 overall. And that's also with the factoring in of the COLA increases, the benefit increases. So even with those increases, our overall expenses are going down 643,000. And then those other items are just to indicate that we are planning on spending the Estero Boulevard landscaping. And then we're contributing 435,000 to the emergency fund. The bridge loan calculation, how I'm doing this, and it can probably be done a variety of ways, but I'm trying to be consistent where we take the FY22 actual revenue of the 10,111,000 and compare it to that base revenue. So if you go back to that screen, that base revenue here at the top line is 7,217,000. So if you compare that 7,217,000 to 2022, we're still short overall almost 2.9 million. And so that's where I'm calculating the amount to use out of the bridge loan. And this is interesting comparison since 2024. Our headcount is really stable in the sense that there's changes within departments, but where you see that major change of 16.75, it's really building services, and this is where we're switching over from employees that we had budgeted for to contractual services, and it may not even account for all 16 positions, or they may not all be filled by contractual positions. So that's where the headcount itself is actually going down. The tentative budget, so the total budget is 12,712,000. For all funds, it's 67 million. And this is to look at revenue by source, general fund revenue by source. We've got taxes, almost 30%, the bridge loan, 23%, license, permits, and fees, almost 18%, other taxes, 12%, our use of reserves, 6.5%, the charges for services, these are the fees that we collect, 4.4%. This miscellaneous revenue is coming in at 4.3%. Fines and assessments, that's a low budget, 2%. And then grants is only 0.2% into the general fund. We have many more grants coming into the special revenue fund.
Can you share a little more of it following that?
That's a good question. Well, insurance, for one thing.
Okay.
That insurance proceeds would fall into that. But I don't know, Sherry, do you recall off the top of your head? Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have it in my head, but I don't. Well, don't I have that separate? No, okay, so interest. Well, actually, that's the bulk of it. So it's interest.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay. So general fund expense by category. So wages is the largest cost, 36.5%. Our contracted services is next in line at 27%. Benefits, 14%. Liability insurance, 9.3%. The cost of our debt, this is the payment that the general fund contributes every year to pay off that $10 million, well, the potentially $10 million loan that we received from to do the Bay Oaks improvements, Times Square. And I have another slide regarding that. That'll
But we
address
didn't
that.
use the entire 10.
Right, and I'll tell you the amount we use
Okay.
in the future slide here. And then capital in the general fund is only 0.5% because most of the capital expenditures are actually coming out of the capital fund itself. Commodities only 2%. Contingencies, it's a slightly more than 2% because we have a 2% contingency in the general department that's required by GFOA, but there are a couple of other small departments. One town manager's department is one that has a small contingency also for anything that may come up during the year. Okay, we have the general fund expense by department, so I don't need to actually go through this department by department. I just have it there for you so you can see in comparison year over year. The total change again, expense wise is $349,000 less. This is all
It was
funds.
more, wasn't
Pardon?
it? Can you go back to the last slide? Wasn't it 347,000 more?
No, you went the other way. There's 349. There's 2 slides past there. There you go, right there. 349, 181.
You're right. So, okay, there might be. Oh, you know what it is? Okay, if we go back to here. Where is it? Did I pass it? I guess I passed it. Where's it?
I'm getting dizzy.
I screwed you all up.
I'm sorry. No, it's not this. It's not this. It must be here. Is this what you were thinking of? Where the
Well,
expenses are
your revenue's gonna go up 347,000, so your expenses to balance the budget are gonna go up.
it's just a way of how it's. I think. Are you comparing it to base expenses?
No, sir.
Okay. What then? What are you comparing it to?
Can you go forward?
Okay.
Slide 22, I think it is.
22 or 23.
Oh, next one, there it is.
There it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so to have a balanced budget, we're gonna have 300, our budget's $350,000 more than it was last year. So both
Yes.
our revenue and expenses are gonna be more by
Yes.
350.
Yes.
You said the opposite though.
Okay, that's why I did this slide here. I know this is maybe intuitive, this isn't intuitive, but I was trying to break it out by components so that the base expenses are actually $643,000 less. But what we're adding into that is the Estero Boulevard landscaping expense of $782,000. So that's creating, an increase in expenses. And then there's also $210,000 more going into the emergency reserve. So if you add up the 643 savings against the additional landscape expenditures of 782 and the additional contribution to the emergency reserve, that's where you end up with the total of 349,000. But yeah, I just wanted to split out that landscaping cost and the contribution to the reserve as separate items because I don't consider those, base expenses. So that's why.
Got it.
Yeah, so I'm sorry if I confused it that way.
That's okay. So I have a question with going way back to what the Vice Mayor said. He had indicated that we've lost five less people, but budget wise, it's 14, 16. Which number is correct?
Well, like
Well,
I
It's
found
on
it on
page.
here.
Yeah, I did too. It's on page 32.
The net is 4, but that's because the contracting employee.
So if you're
On page 190, it's the history of the changes to the personnel budget included in this 2025 budget. And the overall change is negative 20.5. But of that 20.5, 16.5 is contracting rather
okay,
than
yeah, so that's
employees.
what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
we have 5 less, but that's
4.
including contractors. But our head count is less. We have more contractors.
I don't know that we have more contract. I think
What?
overall we have 4 less in-house employees is the way I'm reading it.
It says on page 32.
of the presentation.
No, not this.
No, it's in the
Actual
packet.
budget.
It's in the packet.
Okay.
Where'd it go? Yeah,
Just
current
try-
personnel control. You've got last fiscal year 24, you had 114 people. Now we have 98.
So 16 people less.
16 people less.
Well, those were just changed out for contractors.
Right. Okay.
But this is saying there's actually 4 less employees overall.
If you include contractors. Okay.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, okay. I hope
We spun you around there.
Okay, I hope you're okay. And what I was trying to do here is just limit the changes to what actually affected the budget, because there were some increases in headcount that occurred, like if you were just looking at those headcount, the headcount presentation itself, there were some increases like in neighborhood services where in previous years we counted them as half a position, but they were actually working 3/4 of time in a week. So they really, if you want to convert to full-time equivalents, we needed to convert them from half to 3/4 of a position. So it didn't cost us anymore. We were just correcting the presentation. So it looks like we increased headcount, but we really just were trying to reflect what they were actually, the hours they were actually working and being paid. So I didn't want to confuse this by making it look like we're increasing the budget. The budget increased because of that. It didn't. So I left that out of this presentation here.
Yeah, it looks like it gets confusing because there's a few employees in there that are covered by the TDC,
Yes,
so it doesn't affect the budget.
yes.
So
Correct.
that's why those numbers look a little different
Yes.
than up there.
So I'm sorry that the budget is very confusing. So I think we went through this, didn't we?
I think we're on page 24.
Thank you. Okay. So this is just by all funds. I don't know if I wanted to make sure you're aware of all the funds we have for one thing. So the total change, it increased in the general fund by 350,000. The bridge loan came down by 577,000. So because we're needing to use less of it because of the increase in revenues. Debt service fund didn't change. Emergency fund. This is a little bit hard to compare because we don't have all that much actually budgeted in the emergency fund for FY24, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we've not spent monies there, and we'll probably be doing a budget adjustment for FY24 to reflect what we actually spent. But in this comparison, it looks like there's $2.5 million more budgeted. This FDEM Hurricane Recovery Fund, that's a $5 million loan that we received from FDEM to be used on FEMA projects. I have a separate slide on that. So that's new. That's why that looks like a large increase. Gas tax is actually, because revenues are projected to be down slightly, we adjusted the whole budget down by 130,000. The building fund, we're expecting roughly the same thing, but we brought it down to an even 3.5 million. TDC, the reason why that looks like such a huge increase is we're also reflecting for our beach renourishment. They give us a large amount of beach renourishment. That's most of what that $1.3 million is, and that was not in the budget, the formal budget last year. Capital fund, I have more information on that. In total, though, it's going down $10 million. Community enhancement project, that's that loan that we had budgeted the remainder of for 2024, but we didn't use all that. And of course, there's nothing for
That was the $10 million loan.
yes, that's what was left of 10 million. The ARPA fund, the 877,000 is all we have left. We had budgeted the remainder to be used this year and in previous years. CDBGDR planning grant, that's brand new. We at the point at which we have this additional grant, we'll incorporate that as a budget amendment. We have the road and park impact fees. Basically, we're just budgeting the use of the entire fund balance, which so that 850 and 250 is what is in the fund balance. It doesn't necessarily mean that we'll spend it, but it's budgeted if we do. And then we have the water and stormwater. That the water is higher because we're reflecting for the first time the expense to the water department. It wasn't for tier 1, it's their portion, as well as budgeted loan payments. Those items were not included in the budget in previous years, but I think it distorted the budget. So I'm adding them in this year just so you see the full expense of water. But it does make it look like the actual expense hasn't increased. It's just what we're reflecting the budget has increased. Stormwater is a little different because we had actually budgeted a $10 million grant for 2024 that did not come to fruition. So that was already in last year's budget, but we are budgeting this tier 1 project in stormwater this year. And so the comparison of what's the tier 1 budget this in 2025 compared to that $10 million grant is 800,000 less. But now both water and stormwater have the tier 1 projects in there, as well as the debt service payments. So this is just another comparison by category. So most of it, when you look at it, all funds, most of it's in capital, 55%. Then you have services, fund-wide is only 16%. Wages is only 9%. You've got transfers, contingency, benefits is only 3.5% when you look at it as a whole budget. And debt is only 1.6%.
What is commodities?
Commodities would be like office supplies. It would even, I think, utilities falls under that category. Fuel, anything like that. So
Pork bellies.
that would be
Orange juice.
okay. And actually, it's anything that you would buy, even equipment that's non-capital. So if it doesn't meet the capital threshold, it would be considered a commodity. And the capital threshold is anything $10,000 or more. It would be software also. Well, if you purchase the software. So the capital budget items. So I tried to put together what we have because it's a huge budget, 37 million. So the stormwater tier 1 is the 9.5 million. The capital beach renourishment is almost 9 million. The FDEM loan, this is for the various FEMA projects. I have a separate slide on that. That's 4.4 million. What we have left for the turtle lighting project, that's at almost 3.9 million. We have the Bay Oaks ball field project. This is where we got that $2 million grant, and we have a $1 million match that we're using ARPA funds for. So that's in the budget for next year. And then we have the water portion of tier one, that's the 2.1. We have the town hall renovation project of the new building, that's at 1.9 million. There'll, as new needs for that renovation are identified, there'll be further budget adjustments. The parks and rec infrastructure, that's the impact fees, that's the total of the fund balances at 1.1 million. Then we're also budgeting to spend the rest of ARPA. We've got that replacement program I talked about, where we've got 682,000 in the capital reserve for anything that may need to be replaced over the next year. Then water department has 500,000 for water meters and water lines. TDC beach machinery and equipment, 208,000. They have a small budget for vehicles. That's the carryover of 50,000. Office furniture and equipment is very small, 12,500. And curbs and sidewalks, this is in the gas tax fund. It's any type of work that needs to be done there. It's just a very small budget. This is FDEM FEMA loan for FEMA projects. There's a total left of 4.4 million. We can only use this loan for FEMA projects that were pre-approved by FDEM to use this loan for. And this allocation is just based off of the total cost of those projects, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use those dollar amounts for those specific projects. You can mix and match them as long as the total doesn't exceed the $4.4 million that's remaining, and that as long as you don't exceed the amount that FEMA approved for the project. So this is just a small portion of the FEMA projects. I mean, the projects are much larger. They only are allowing us a small portion of it to have cash up front
To start the project.
to start the projects.
Now, will
Yeah.
that, the pump station repairs, is that the north tower or the south tower? And then you got the pump station replacement. One of those two, I would think would come out of that recent CDBG DR funding.
That is correct. Yes.
So that those numbers are gonna change a little bit.
We'll
Yes.
probably have to
Okay.
reshuffle this, but this is where we have it at the moment. And I do have another slide about FEMA, I think, the loan. So this is all funds by revenue source. So again, it's just a percentage, like where are all the revenues coming from in a broader perspective. 30% is coming out of the reserves, 19% out of grants, 14% out of loan proceeds. So I won't go through every single item. And this is the use of reserves. So I think here that the top line reserves is 30%, which is $20 million. This is how it's all broken out. So we've got what's considered a reserve. So the source of funding is the reserve. The FDEM loan that we received, we received it this year, so it's sitting in the reserve. It'll be carried forward next year to actually be allocated out. The balance of the Turtle Lake grant is at 3.8 million. The bridge loan proceeds is coming out of the bridge loan reserve, 2.9 million. The balance up front of beach renourishment, we received a grant for $8 million this year. So this is the balance that's carrying forward for beach renourishment. And that grant was an $8 million upfront payment. We have some insurance proceeds that we have for the new town hall that are sitting in the emergency fund. And so that's part of the reserves that'll be used. The road and park impact fees, all of those fund balances are the reserves. So that's that 1.1 million. The capital fund for the ball field, our $1 million contribution that we moved into that from ARPA. The remainder of ARPA to be spent is 877,000. Then we got again that same landscape maintenance of 82,000. We've got that scheduled replacements of 682,000, the vehicle replacement. So this is just an accounting of everything that's coming out of the reserves. So it leaves nothing to the imagination. So grant revenue. So this is just the major grant sources we have. Beach Renourishment is coming from FDEP, 6.5 million. We've got the Bay Oaks Ball Field coming from FDEP also. TDC beach maintenance, 1.3 million, TDC beach renourishment, 1.3 million, that's CDBGDR, comprehensive planning grant, 1.1 million. And then we have smaller grants, so for stormwater tier 1 project, 250,000 each. And then we have that small marine law enforcement grant from WCIND, 25,000. Other revenues. So what's falling into, this is my own category for other revenue details. So we have loan proceeds of almost $10 million coming out of the state revolving fund for tier 1. And then we've got transfers coming from the bridge loan, from the general fund to the emergency fund of that 435,000, and then transfers for debt service at 581,000 to repay that loan. So here we have the debt service, a little more detail. I'm sorry, it's so faint. This is that $10 million loan that we originally were approved for. We only used 3.5 million of it, so 6.4, almost 6.5 million remained unspent. But we have the arrangement to repay that loan is just a fixed payment every year of 581,000. So the fact that we use that much less of it means that it'll be paid off that much sooner. And it's actually a very reasonable payment, and it was already incorporated in the budget. It's nothing new that we had to add to the budget. The DEO bridge loan, we received it on June 30th last year. The original maturity date was June 30th of this year, and I just received an email, I think on Friday, with the new agreement, and that extends it to 2033. So it's basically a 10-year term from 2023 to 2033. So we don't have to pay it back until then. And then this is just an accounting. We received 11.9 million. We used almost 3.1 million the first year. We're expected to use 3.5 million this year. And then next year, we're projecting that almost 2.9 million. And then the interest rate begins in July of 2033 at 10% for anything that's not paid by that time, repaid by that time. And then this is just more information about that $5 million FEMA loan. We received the full amount upfront, so it's sitting in our bank account in February. It's an interest-free loan, but we must pay FDM any interest that we earn on it. And so we're paying them their share of that 5% interest that we're earning. It may only be used for that pre-approved list. And then it's automatically repaid out of any FEMA reimbursements we receive. So it's nothing that we have to worry about repaying. It's just, that's how it'll happen. And then this is just to give you a snapshot of the Florida State Revolving, the SRF fund loans, what our balances are. So the total balances all the way across the board is 43.5 million. The annual payments, once they all become due, will be almost $3 million. The semi-annual would be 1.5 million. But they're very small payments to start with, in the sense that it's only 615,000 for the water repayment and 373 or almost 374,000 for the stormwater repayments that have already started and are incorporated into the budget, and the other payments don't start until 2029.
Joe, maybe this is a question for you guys. Do we have any idea what that final number is going to be for the tiered side street? I mean, back before the storm, I want to say it was somewhere in the $75 million range.
I think it got walked back down to about 63 after all was said and done, because there were some things that we weren't going to do, some things that weren't vetted at that time. I think the net probably is closer to 65 total number.
And depending on what you find from the discussion earlier,
Correct. Yes.
that could, okay.
So I think we're just about nearing the end, but I just wanted to touch on every aspect of the budget. And of course, all the detail is in the packet. In my preparation of this presentation and putting that last slide together, I did realize then that I didn't have enough in the budget for stormwater and water for debt service repayments. So I needed to increase those payments, or we need to increase those in the budget. It doesn't increase the overall budget. It just takes money out of like the stormwater contingency to cover it, or the water contingency to cover it. But that is a correction I need to make, and it'll be made in on the version that'll be presented next hearing. But that concludes my presentation.
All right. Questions? It was very, very well done. I would have to say this is probably the most intuitive one since I've been involved, that's for sure. And the interesting thing is how many areas there weren't.
They were
Yes.
losing a lot of sleep.
Yes, I mean, it's very, very optimistic.
Good.
It's very
Thank you.
optimistic.
You both did, and your staff did a great job.
Yes, and wonderful thanks to Sherry. She really put together all of that detail.
Raise your
behind
hand,
the
Sherry,
scenes.
so everybody sees you. Good job, Sherry.
Vice Mayor Hall?
Just one last question on the utility space. Joe, we've talked about the firewall between the general fund and the utilities division. Within the utilities division, is water, stormwater, and sewer siloed within the utility division? In other words, is one subsidizing another, or are their rates reflective of the actual costs of each individual division of the utility division?
Well, I probably don't know enough about the details to be able to give you the best answer, but from what I understand of it in working with Lee County, we pay them for sewer service, I believe.
Yeah, it's bulk. Yeah.
And of course the water we pay.
By bulk, but we
By bulk.
distribute it. Yeah.
Right. So we are paying them, and of course their rates are based on costs, and then we charge them administrative fees that are very carefully analyzed by them, and we had rather lengthy meetings with them early on in the spring to just go over that and fine tooth detail. So I think we're at a point, at least right now, where they're in agreement with what we're charging them and they're comfortable with it. And we'll update them with the latest figures. It's only an annual invoicing that we do for those services, but I think everything is reflective of cost. And then if there is excess revenue, it just goes back into the fund, and then it would be available for any shortfalls for capital improvements.
Would you mind just checking, particularly on the stormwater piece, to see if that the stormwater fees reflect the actual cost of the service provided?
In the sense that you think.
In other words, I'm just want to ensure that somebody who pays a water bill or a sewer bill is not subsidizing the stormwater fee, stormwater fund.
No, there's no money like being transferred out of the water fund into the stormwater fund. There's separate
That was my
funds.
question. So they
Oh,
are
I'm sorry.
they are
Yes.
siloed then.
Oh, yes,
They have
I
to be, yeah.
misunderstood.
I just,
Yes.
that was my question. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's
That's
okay.
a very simple answer.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you. Very good. That's all I've got.
All right. Council Woodson?
Do you dream in numbers? I mean, when did you ever decide that you wanted to do this for a living? I don't understand. I don't. I just don't.
We're all
I'd love
glad you
to-
did,
I'd love
though.
to make it.
Yeah, we're all-
glad you did.
We're all extremely glad
Look
you
at
did. I'm
everybody.
just like, oh my God, who would ever want to do this for a living? But I'm so glad we have you to do it.
Yes.
They don't
It's
rest until
amazing.
they make sense to me, but I'm sorry if they confuse you.
Councilor Safford?
No, I'm great. Great job. Thank you.
Great job.
And I don't have anything either. Good job. Thanks, Joe and Sherry and the rest of your team. And I know there's more people back in there that are not here, but all right. With that, is there a motion to table resolution 24-175 fiscal year 25 tentative budget?
So moved.
Second,
Motion by Counselor King, seconded by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? Counselor King,
Aye.
Counselor Woodson,
aye.
Counselor Safford,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. We will go back to item A, resolution 24-174, fiscal year 25 proposed millage rate. Is there a motion to open, do we need a motion to reopen the hearing? Is
Yes, go ahead
Okay.
and do a
is there a
motion.
motion to reopen the hearing?
So moved.
Got a motion by Counselor King,
Second,
seconded by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? Counselor King,
Aye.
Counselor Woodson,
aye.
Counselor Safford,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. The hearing is now open. Okay, we don't need to rediscuss it. Is there a motion to?
Mayor,
Go on.
I would like for the record only, if Joe could stand and perhaps again publicly announce what the percentage increase is of the millage and how it exceeds the rollback rate. That was
Okay.
in item number, slide number 10 and 11, I believe, of your presentation. And it is also in the resolution, section 2 of the proposed resolution, and then public comment. And I think a vote
Okay.
would be appropriate. Section 2 of the resolution. Oh dear.
Tropical Shores Way, and I just thought maybe we could nip that in the bud, since it sounds like you have some updates on that. Or,
Yes,
or is it premature?
Let's get through this and then we'll do it.
Okay,
before
I didn't
we-
know he was ready. Okay, I thought I was just trying to kill some time in the middle while he was looking for his stuff.
Well, because we opened the public hearing, it's probably best to.
Fair enough.
So,
ahead.
the ad valorem millage rate for fiscal year 2024, 2025 is proposed to be set at 0.9900 mils, which is 0.9900 for each $1,000 of assessed valuation. The current year rolled back rate is 0.6561 mils. The proposed operating millage rate is then 50.89% greater than the rolled back rate.
And then
Okay, with
public
that,
comment.
we'll open it up for public comment. Would you like to say something? Okay,
Thank
don't
you.
need to brag. We just wondered if you wanted to say something. All right, seeing that, we'll close public comment. Is there a motion to approve the proposed millage rate of 0.99 per the recommendation of the town staff?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Counselor Woodson, seconded by Counselor Safford. Any discussion?
I would just like to say, thank you to all the staff for their hard work on this. I know the mayor, the vice mayor, and the others challenged the town to get.
By Counselor Safford. Any discussion? Counselor King,
Aye.
Counselor Safford,
Aye.
Counselor Woodson,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. The hearing is open back up. We will
Public
ask for public comment. Still no public comment. We will close public comment. Is there a motion to approve resolution 24-175 fiscal year 2025 tentative budget?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Safford, seconded by Counselor King. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Safford,
Aye.
Counselor King,
Aye.
Counselor Woodson,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. The motion carries unanimously. Now remind me, did we do C or are we gonna do C? We still have to do C. We've done
We
C.
did that,
So
yeah.
we've done, okay. Everything's been open and closed enough times. We're good. All right.
Nauseous.
Yes, exactly. So now that brings us to final public comment. Still no
She's
public
still-
comment.
She's still good.
Still good. Show
I'm
off.
telling you, she's
All
waiting
right.
for dinner.
All right, we will close final public comment. with that, there is a motion.
Could we just have them?
Oh,
come-
yes,
yeah,
sorry.
that's right.
Before that, yes, let's talk
So-
about the,
The Tropical
So-
Shore Way issue. Yeah.
Yeah, so on our back lot, that we used to have where
Right.
Angry Site Work is currently, have equipment in that, those lots we used to take, when Earthview used to come and, for all intents and purposes, clean out our storm drains. It's just compaction of slurry sand and mud. That's where they used to dump it and let it dry, and then we would either haul it away or they would come and take care of it. We have a silt fence set up in the back there, and apparently a small amount of it had gone out underneath the silt fence. That's since been addressed, and they'll be dumping back here now. It is all cleanable fill that we can
Right.
use for our ball field. So this material was released, nor did it harm the canal in any number. Chad went out right away, so did the code enforcement people, and they were confident that everything has been taken care of.
I appreciate the update. Thank you.
Yes.
all right. Counselor King?
Your mortal words of Lawrence Welk and his band. Good night, sleep tight, pleasant dreams to you. Wonderful, wonderful. Let's adjourn.
Yay.
We got a motion by Counselor King,
Second.
second by Counselor Safford. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We are adjourned at 6:57.